Welcome to the series on STEM and entrepreneurship. Last week, we worked on evaluating entrepreneurial opportunities, the Trinity perspective, basically the 3S framework of sizable, sustainable, and scalable. This week, we're going to explore the topic of designing entrepreneurial business, the value perspective. Okay, let's look at designing entrepreneurial business from the perspective of value. Now, what is value? Why should we approach from the value perspective? Let me bring it true for you. So the purpose of the business or any enterprise is to solve problems for customers. I think that's a very basic fact. Business exists because the customer has needs. And when we look at the customer needs, as we've done in the innovation series, people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole. That's needs. And if you can solve this problem that they have of having a hole, which can be any solution, then address that need. So you create value. And I think that's important. This statement by Professor Theodore Levitt on need. Now, let's try to translate it properly. And therefore, we say the purpose of business is to create value for customer. So from problem solving to create value from customers. And we have explored the value proposition canvas comprising of customer profile, which will look at the jobs to be done. From the jobs to be done, we split into pains and gains, and then we propose a solution. So from customer profile, the needs, solution to the needs is the value map. So we brainstorm ideas, we create what we have known as for the pain reliever, for the gain creator. So in that sense, what we're trying to achieve is a problem-solution fit. So there's a problem, there's a solution, and we fit them together using the pains and gains to guide us. So far, so good. This is all about innovation, and the purpose of this innovation of having the fit is to create what we call the minimum viable product. So let me bring you through the whole thought process again. Well, we have the jobs to be done. And we know that in our previous discussion, the jobs can be divided into 3 categories: functional, emotional, and social. And in this case, what I'm trying to illustrate to you is, let's say we have functional, 2 needs that are pains, emotional, 1 gains. And we then think of a solution. We brainstorm for a solution, and from that solution, we can create a V1 which addresses the gains. We can come up with V2 which addresses the F1 pain. And would that be sufficient? That depends on the customers. And if that is already sufficient to fit the customer needs or the jobs, then we have what we have called a minimum viable product or MVP. Now, if we look at MVP, obviously the simplest way to look at it, and my example is the donut example of having a breakfast, the job to be done, fill your tummy, nice food. And therefore, you can propose and brainstorm a concept called, or a prototype known as a donut. And the donut will address the pain of filling the tummy, address the gain of nice food, sugar, and obviously you have a final product. Now, that is creating value for customers. Okay, but how are you going to run the business? Where are we going to have ourselves situated at, located at? Is that important, right? Who's going to supply us the sugar? What else do we need to provide for the customers? Do we deliver them in a retail shop? Do we do delivery? How we communicate our value to the customers? Is it by advertisement? Is it by promotions? And therefore, that part is on the business. And the important thing is, how do you design a business? Now let's go back to the basic. And instead of just focusing on the innovation, which is to address the needs, now we need to be much more holistic, because business is not about just you and the customers, but a lot more stakeholders, a lot more people involved, right? So you may have to go to retailers, you may have to go to partners, you may need the delivery guys to do stuff for you. You need a website. How do you communicate to the customers? And where's the cost? Where's the production? Are there regulatory? Many, many things to consider. And therefore, when you run a business, you have to think much more comprehensively. While when you're coming out with innovation, you focus on the customer. Now, how do you represent that? How do you then work on that such that it's easy for people to design a business? And therefore, we have to focus on the business model. The question is, a lot of people has different perspective of business models. If you talk to the marketing guy and they say, my business model is sales, promotion, advertisement. You talk to the production guys, my business model is very simple. It's efficient production, lowest cost production, control inventory. You talk to the finance guys, my business model is hire purchase. All right? So different people have different languages. Different languages on business or business model, and they cannot communicate, right? So business model, we have to present something that is not just holistic. It is a language of communication. You must communicate among the stakeholders, the different parties. Customers must understand your business model. Supplier must understand your business model. Internally, all your staff must understand your business model. So how do we create that language of communication? Well, we have Alex Osterwalder that designed a business model canvas so that we can use it as a language for communication, and it's holistic. And let's try to understand what's the genesis, how this thing comes about, so that we can further understand how you design a business model. So let's start with the most important thing, the customer segment and the value proposition. The customer has a problem. Obviously, we propose a solution. But beyond the solution, right, it's about creating value for the customers. This is a value proposition. I think we have discussed things like safety, right? Safety is a value proposition, but the solution is a LED lighted helmet that can show and communicate its intent. We have also shown the dialysis machines, and it's not just about therapy. The dialysis that they provided for the patient is about the freedom to travel, the freedom to work. And that put us on a higher level plane called value proposition. So we start with these two boxes, which is really about innovations, how you create the business model. The first thing is that if you look at a value proposition, ultimately it's a solution, right? It's a product. So therefore you have to create the product. And therefore, if you look from a value perspective, I will call it value creation. So we create value because value proposition is to deliver to the customer. And therefore, you must deliver to the customers, and we have value delivery. So you create the value, that is the value proposition, and then you deliver to customers. That's value delivery. Well, that's one line. Well, it's just great, right? It's customer centricity. You actually deliver things to the customers. But how about the business itself, right? Is it like Google? You have the customer who are searching, and how do you capture the value? Right? You're in business, you got to be profitable, and therefore they need to capture the value. So a value capture will then provide a holistic view of not just delivering the value to the customers, but how the customer is going to pay you. Right? So from there on, you have value capture, which is how the customer is going to pay you and what's the cost of the value creation, and therefore we are able to have a full picture of the flow of values in the business model. And if we put it into boxes, so we have two boxes to start off with, the customer segments and the value propositions. Then we have one box for value creation, the creation of the products. And then we have one box for value delivery, how the products is going to reach the customers. So value delivery. And then finally, we need to capture the value, and we put a box there, value capture. So it becomes very easy for us to understand how the concept of value is being created, delivered, and captured at the same time. Now let's go into the detail of the boxes, what is going to be inside. So if you look at value creations, when you want to create value, when you want to create a product, think about it. What's the most important thing? You must have resource, right? You have a key resources. It could be intellectual property. It could be your know-how. It could be patents. It could be your retail network. So it could be a database. So whatever it is, you need to have some unique resource for you to create a value. And the next thing is, if I have an IP or a patent or an idea, I need to make it, right? So I need to make it means I need production. Well, beyond production, I may have to do design. I may have to do regulatory, certifications. I may have to do branding and marketing. So there are numerous activities that I need to do, right? So activities is one of the big important thing in value creation. Well, you can't do everything in the world, and therefore for those things that is not necessary for your business to do, or you're not better than other people, you want to outsource. So you need partners. So the airlines need partners in, for example, credit card. Airlines may need example for hotels so that they can package their travels, right? Or limousines so that they can provide a value service for the customers. So in that sense, resources, activities, and partners are important in value creation. How about value delivery? Well, the first thing you need to do is when you are having a new product or innovation, the customers must know that you exist. So what's the relationship with the customers? All right, so relationships. Then what are the channels? Physical channels, online channels. So you have relationship and channels. And obviously for value capture, you have the revenue streams, and could be multiple revenue streams, and cost structure. So if we look at this, we have now evolved canvases. It's difficult to fill in everything, so we further break it down. And if you take all the components that are the black words over there, and then we break it down to components, and therefore we can come out with this thing called the business model canvas. Now, if you look at it carefully, the business model canvas, we have the yellow part, right, which is the front end. The front end is customer facing, and is anchored by the customer segments and the value proposition. So how should you go about filling this, right? So think about it as three more important sections: the front end, the back end, and the profit formula. The front end, the back end, and the profit formula. So the first thing we want to do is to fill in the customer segment. You need to have a customer. What's the problem that the customer have? You need to fill in the value proposition. Then the next thing is, if you have innovation, how do you communicate with the customers? So you build the customer relationships, right? So when you're building your customer relationship, that will be the third box that you want to fill in. The third box is CR. Now the CR, when you are new, especially in the market, a high-tech firm, and in typical marketing process, first, you must do customer acquisition. And the techniques for customer acquisition will be like promotions, discount, branding, marketing. So lots of such activities. And we all know that when you're doing this, it incurs what we call the CAC, customer acquisition cost. So that's where when you sign up a credit card, they give you a travel bag. There's a cost of customer acquisition. Even online, when you create a customer profile, they'll take up computer time, they'll take up storage. Well, it's not that expensive, but it still costs. But I think the most expensive cost is really reaching out to the customer, which is the promotion and the marketing. And the customer relationships can also then move on from the customer acquisition to the customer retention. When customer comes in your systems, what's your retention model? What's your customer relationship management, the CRM? How do you retain them? Royalty points. How do you make them sticky? Is it a platform model? So those are the things that you have to think about to put into the business model, to design a business model. And even then, after that, what's going to happen is the customer comes into the systems, the customer stays in the system, you must grow your customers, right? So instead of one transaction, can they have 3 transactions? Instead of just one transaction of $1, can they increase the transactions to $2? How do you grow your customer? Can you cross-sell? Can you package? Can you increase the frequency? That's the growth. So the simple box, like the customer relationship, can have 3 different phases of different activities. Customer acquisition, what I call get the customer, customer retention, keep the customer, and the customer growth, grow the revenue. Well, once you have settled that, then the next thing that you have to really figure out, which is box number 4, is channels. How do you reach out to the customers? How do you deliver the goods and services to the customers, right? So, well, in traditional world, we have the distributor, the retail channel, the shopping mall, right? The shops, the physical shops. But we now have many kinds of goods. The goods such as digital goods, for example, songs, musicals, videos. Well, in the past, videos can be delivered by DVD. And if you want to deliver by DVD, what do? You mail. And nowadays, it's called streaming. So therefore, the channels for video or songs can actually be physical, but nowadays it's much more online. And therefore, you now see things that are much more complicated. If you order food and deliver online, right, the channel distributions is physical, food. You got to eat, right? So it's going to be physical. So there's lots of stuff that can do combinations, online to offline. So there are different ways of doing these channels, which you have to figure out. All right, that's box number 4. Then the next thing that you want to figure out is box number 5, and box number 5 will be on revenue. Well, if you provide a value proposition to customers, how much are they willing to pay? Is it going to be a one-time sales or asset sales? Is it going to be a subscription sales? Is it going to be asset sales plus maintenance? Is it going to be free usage and pay later? So there are many revenue models that nowadays we can experiment and we can try. Okay? Could it be licensing? Could be licensing plus maintenance. All right? So you're going to explore for yourself. This is box number 5. So we now shift to the back end. When you look at the back end, the first thing is what makes you so good? That you can create the value proposition. Then you can create the product. Obviously, it's something that's unique to you, right? It got to be your key resource. So what can be key resource? Intellectual property will be the first one. Intellectual property will include proprietary know-how, trade secrets, even trademarks, even things like copyrights. And of course, the most important thing in deep tech is patents. The knowledge that gives you that uniqueness, that when you file the patent, the society or the intellectual property office will give you the legal rights to exclude others, which is basically given monopoly over 20 years from the date of filing of your patent. So you can start with IP or know-how. Well, the interesting things is that some of them could be like your data assets, the database. For example, if you are looking at Facebook, social media, the huge database of the customers, the personalities, their likes, the dislikes, you can file a patent on that. But the huge database provides you the unique knowledge that people don't have. You can use artificial intelligence on that, you can use machine learning on that, but you can then provide a unique value proposition to the customers. So data sets, AI algorithms. Well, even physical money is possible, especially if you need money to do the buffering, the flows of your value proposition or the products. Even the retail channels, if you have distribution channels, you have a control over the distribution channels, you can actually create a completely new business models. So those are the key resources. So that will be number box 6. Well, box 7 will be key activities. If you have resource, if you have intellectual property, what do? You need to produce a product, right? So that will means that you need to have production. Well, first mainly you have design production, and design production then regulatory. Well, certain products, electronics products, regulatory is pretty much easier. Whether you do your ISO 9000 or you do your product testing, EMI, EMC testing, or whether information security testing, ISO 27000, doesn't matter. It is regulatory. For medical device product, when we are in deep tech, things might get a little bit longer because you need to do clinical trials. So medical device, maybe you need to figure out a strategy, and you get phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, depends on your type certification. And that's your key activities. But it also goes into what you need to do a promotion, right? Your branding. This all depends on the business, right? For example, if you are selling sneakers, sports shoes, branding is much more important than just the manufacturing. So 2 most important activities in sports shoes are really design and branding or marketing. Now in that case, those are the 2 important activities, right? It's not the production, because production can be outsourced. And who do you outsource to? Then you outsource to your key partner. So what is key partner? So key partner is someone or contractor that you work with, right? Or some organization you work with. So let's talk about manufacturing. If manufacturing is unique to you, you are the only one that can produce that product, then obviously it's a key resource. You won't outsource, right? But if it's manufacturing is not important, but it's the creativity that's the key resources, the design, then manufacturing can outsource, and that will become your key partner. So the key partner is somebody who is relevant, unique to you. If you want to outsource and there are 10 guys, 10 subcontractors standing there, then you really don't need the key partners, because you can actually throw out a tender and they comes in. So you do not need to write them in. But if they are so unique in the world that you need to have them, then that becomes your key partner. Or certain regulatory bodies must be your key partner, because if you are doing medical product and you don't have the regulatory body, so for example, if you go to US and you don't have FDA certification, then forget about it, you can't sell anything, right? So that's key. So you need to know your key partner, because they got to review your products and check on your clinical certification before you can actually sell anything. The key partners can be contractors, manufacturers, regulatory bodies, and even sometimes people you license with, right? So in the modern world, a lot of researchers are conducted by research institutions or universities, and they can be your key partner. And one way to do that is very simple. You license from them, right? Maybe exclusive or non-exclusive, and that license is therefore your key resource. But really, they control the technology. However, you can continue to let them do the R&D by having a research agreement with them, and they continue to feed you intellectual property to form your key resource. All right, there's many formulas that you can work on. And box number 8, which is key partner. Now, all these have costs, right? One-time costs, licensing costs, let's say, R&D costs, and then ongoing costs. And ongoing costs are R&D activities, marketings, and all the stuff that needs for you to complete that structure. So what we see is that revenue versus cost. Now, a lot of people then look at it is the business model going to change all the time? Yes, it's going to change over the time. If you are a startup, obviously the business model at the startup point and the business and operational times are going to be different, because the activities are going to be different. However, when you design business model, you are really designing business model for operational purpose. So the first thing is, ultimately, you must derive a business model that's operational. Operational means that I look at it is how I go into the market and I compete long term. So when I compete long term means what? My revenue got to be, streams got to be very clear, my cost structure got to be very clear. I need to know that the revenue versus cost, what is your gross margin? Because If you look at a business model, if you do right at the startup stage and right at the mature stage, they're completely different. And for investors, they'll look at the mature stage, right? Startup stage, yes, you just tell me how you're going to go into market, promotion. I will know how much money I need to invest. But when it's operational, would it be a big thing? Would it be a sizable business? And not just sizable, would the margin be big enough, right? Is the gross margin great enough so that we can recoup all our investment plus much, much more? So when you design business model, it's really for operational. Well, you can use it for the startup stage, but that's to tell you how to build it up, all right? So business model really is for operational model. Think of it from the angle. Now, so they have questions on what kind of business model, boxes inside, what kind of question, right? For customers, for whom we are creating value, what are most important and what are the customer archetypes, right? Customer relationship, how do we get, keep and grow customers, how do we establish? So you can go through all this. So when you look at a business model canvas, and this is by Strategizer, one way we can look at is to try to analyze it. And one of the things that you can analyze it from front end and back end, what I call effectiveness and efficiency. Front end really focus on effectiveness. How effective are you in meeting in customer needs? Back end is really looking at efficiency, because back end is looking at cost. How you can actually streamline and continue to streamline to look at, to lower their costs, right? So I think important things, why is effectiveness? Sometimes you have to focus on effectiveness and sometimes you have to focus on efficiency. If you want to redesign your business model, reason's very simple. If you introduce a new product, the most important things is all about effectiveness. That's what the customer needs, all right? And then once you introduce the products and the customer wants it, and during the product life cycle, during that stage where the same product is being produced, you focus on efficiency. You may say, well, initially first year, manufacturing in-house. After that, second year, manufacturing is outsourced to lower the cost. You have to really think about not just from the business model angle, the various boxes. You have to think about the industry life cycle. For example, if you're selling phone and it's like Apple, right? You're selling the iPhone from Apple, iPhone 1, iPhone 2. You know that every year there's a new iPhone. And therefore, people will be looking at buying new iPhones. So effectiveness is very important. What does people want next year? Now, if you take a phone that's 5 years ago and you make it such low cost and you sell, still nobody want to buy, right? They rather pay more money for the latest phone. So efficiency is really not important, but effectiveness is. But for certain industry, where the life cycle is very, very long, you introduce a product, it's going to take 10 years. And so what you want to do is really drive down the cost for the next 9 years. And more people come to the market. All right, so that is a strategy. It's not just strategic thinking here, it's a business model thinking, application to your customer's segment. So let's start with an example of business model design. You know that we have been working and previously worked on the value proposition of freedom for dialysis patients. So in the business model design, what we have is that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, so the customer segment with 10,000 patients, and each patient consumes $20,000 per patient per year. There's an $80 billion market. This is a launch market. The value proposition is freedom. It's a 1 kilogram dialysis machine. Well, when you fill in the blanks, obviously you have the technology that comes from the Universities of California, Los Angeles, UCLA School of Medicine, and they license it with the patents, and they continue to work on more patents, and they have the key activities is beside R&D, which is pretty much standard. It's really the FDA, the clinical trials, and the certifications. Now, it's okay, it's very well done in the back end, but when you come to the front end and you look at the customers, and the customer is the Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veterans Affairs is hospitals, and the service is clients, the retired veterans that is all over US. And what you have is that you really need to have a channel that can service the whole of the US VA hospitals. or associate hospital. And that lies in the problem, right? If you are coming up with a new company, do you have the resources for the channels? And obviously what you can do is that you can find key partners to work with you to go through the channels, but you need time to work on it. But beyond that is also your clinical trial activities, right, which is going to take a long time. So maybe the way to experiment with the business model is this, really to look at, yes, if I have to do this, I have to go through the channels. And this is where I have a big problem. And if you follow this, the value flow, that is something that I start thinking, what should I do? Well, maybe the answer then is to redesign the business model. And if you redesign the business model, you say, how about I targeted, and my customer is a leading dialysis company in America, which can service all the hospitals all over the United States. And therefore, what I need to really do is to license. The rest remains the same. And therefore, if I can go through this, then I have licensing revenue, while I can also provide consumables that give me my maintenance and regular revenue. But if you go through this, and you can see that the value flow is slightly different, right? You are actually going through this curve rather than through this curve. So through a customer relationships, a direct licensing, rather than through the channels of distribution. So it does tell us that when you put important things, you can actually see the value flow. And so that's important that when you design business, it must be value-based. It must be value-driven. And we focus on the value. What we see is that there's a business model that might look at this, coming from the key partners to the key resources, moving to the value proposition, to the channels, to the customers, or this way. Actually, it doesn't go through the key activities, because maybe there's no need for you to do the regulatory if you license it out. So your key resources is to be licensed to a customer and a direct relationship. So you see the arrows are two different, right? So what does it mean for us? What it means is that when you design the business, you really are competing against somebody's business model. And therefore, what you want to do is really look at the value flow, which means when you fill in the blanks on the business model, the component, the boxes, you really need to fill in the important thing. And that's why it's called key, right? Fill in the important things, differentiate yourself from us, from the others, and therefore you can see that maybe your competitor business model is like that. And they may then focus on customer relationship, like wealth management, like premium airlines. But if you want to compete, you're going to hit the rack into them, you may want to change the value flow into channels. So maybe the channels are the focus, not the relationships. That's the important part of it. So budget airlines focus really on the channels rather than on one-to-one relationship. You just, there's no lounge, right? Well, compared to the premium full-service airlines, there are lounge, there are lots of things that they take care of you, but they focus on the one-to-one relationship through the channels, distribution, make the cost cheaper. All right, so when you look at competing business model, focus on the value flow and redesign your value flow so that you can better compete. Not just that, redesign in such a way that it is unique and different for you. And I think when you are moving into new entrepreneurial business, the design of a business model that differentiate yourself away from the existing competitors in the market are extremely important. And how to present that picture. Look at the arrows. Well, if you look at the business model, we always look at what kind of fits, right? We have value proposition, which is the fit between problems and solution, and and product market fit. And what a really important thing is also what we call the business model fit. Does this really fit well to the marketplace? So we have lots of possible business model. The consumption model, which is basically, well, you cannot sell a machine that's so expensive to our customers, so you sell them usage. The machine is free, but there's a minimum usage, and they will continue to use. And that's how this business model can work. Well, you can have a razor blade model, where actually the razor is really cheap, or even give away, but the subscription, the continued usage of the consumable is one, right? Then you can have a two-sided network or platform model, which is becoming more and more important nowadays. The Uber model, the Grab model, which is that you have a drivers and you have riders, and then how you balance between both parties such that they have a virtuous growth. We are going to look at this model in the next 2 sessions. So really talking about how to design the business model, and I've emphasized on the holistic, so the language of communication and also value flow, and really use it for experimentation. Now we come to a very important point, right? Our job for designing entrepreneurial business, especially for deep tech startup, is really designing disruptive business model. Question, how do you do it? Well, if you look at the business model, and from Alex Osterwalder's latest proposition, we will look at things and say, okay, why don't we look at the business model canvas from a different angles, where we can actually disrupt the business models of other competitors, and we look at front-end disruption, back-end disruption, and profit formula disruption. So let's go and take a look at a little bit more details. What is front-end disruption? Front-end disruption is talking about all this. How do you reconfigure this part? So when you say reconfigure this part, how do you pivot? How do you move one to another? Should it move customer relationship here or vice versa? How do you change the flow? Or completely change the value proposition or maintaining the same customer segments? Then we can look at the back end. Well, should we have more key resources? Should we acquire key resources? Should we partner with universities? Should we outsource everything? Maybe we focus on regulatory. What are the key activities that we should do and do more, and the rest is outsourced? So you can change the back end. Like for example, creating barriers or entries. We have covered the disruption using business model canvas for your experimentation, the front end, the back end, and then the profit formula. So any movement of these boxes allows you to create a disruptive business model. But how to do it, we'll discuss in the next episode. All right. So what we have done is, following the couple of episodes design, evaluating the entrepreneurial opportunities, the Trinity perspective of size, sustainable and scalable, and designing entrepreneurial business from the value perspective of being holistic, able to use as a language for communication, and then for experimentation, such that we can design and analyze business model, and to design further into disruptive business model. But how to be disruptive? Episode 3, crafting entrepreneurial strategies, the disruption perspective. And that's where we're going to be focused on the strategies and also the use of business model canvas in designing disruptive businesses. I'll see you in the next episode.